Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or a lot of money on the internet. That might also include the presidential market and any related prediction markets. Loaded up for discussion today, we have number one, crypto small sell-off on the presidential debate, where Kamala performs better than expected. Bitcoin is at 56K, ETH 2.3, Solana $131. Number two, USDC daily transfers on Base hit $7 billion, whilst On-Chain Summer Initiative results in $5 million in mint revenue to creators. And finally, the SEC has made $4.68 billion from crypto firms this year. We'll dive into all of that, plus some interesting discussions on Gemini's 2024 Global State of Crypto report, which came out yesterday. So stay tuned for that. Today, we've got a full house. Legendary is in the co-host seat. Sam is in the co-host seat. Brett is also in the co-host seat. We're ready to get into it. But before we do that, just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice, because the market is very, very risky and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Brett, it's Wednesday. It's the 11th of September. How are you doing?
Like I pressured, like now that I've mentioned it, he's default coming to me. I love it. Things are great. House is still in shambles, as you can see. Played a little softball last night. My last game, potentially ever in my life. I figure.
No,
I
can't
hope so.
be. Can't be the last one ever, can it? Are you retired?
Maybe. I mean, I was in Norway for a few years and never didn't play when I was there. If I go do this Asia trip and then come back, I'm moving. The new place doesn't have a softball league or something, I don't know. So I might be. I hung up the cleats. I threw them away. I gave my bag away. All that shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
you actually got rid of it.
Yeah, I don't want to drag it around with me. So I'll just buy new shit
Interesting.
if I do it again.
I do
But yeah,
like how
things are good.
retirement tends to come around for us at this age, where it's like you don't actually know if you've retired. It's just, the team that you kind of participated in is kind of falling
Mm-hmm.
apart. Everyone's kind of got busy. They can't
Yeah,
carve out the time
family's doing their
anymore.
thing. Yeah,
You've still got the kit, you've still got the boots, but well, that's how it happened for me. You've made the decision to get rid. Interesting. Good stuff.
yeah. But yeah, no. Otherwise, fun. Now it's back to the crypto shit, as you know.
Nice.
Are you excited about Singapore? Like, like all steam ahead for me. I like now. I'm starting to actually line up events. I'm starting to I
Yeah.
challenged Clemente, so I got to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that Singapore is going to be great. As we were speaking about this the other day, like we haven't been. I think I was speaking with you about it. Like neither of us have been, at least not as adults. Like I'm pretty excited to go. I actually fly in 2 days' time, so I will be there on the weekend from Saturday onwards. Very,
You know
very
what the
excited.
You know what the hack I learned on the timeline today
What?
was someone's like, because it's expensive, right? Because
Yeah.
F1 and Singapore broadly, they're like, the hack is apparently there's a 24-hour spa there. And they're like, if you're in a pinch, it's $100 a night. It's a buffet. They got a theater. They got all this shit, and people just like literally wander around this fucking place and just like live there for a couple days if they need to.
Are you going to be staying at the spa, Brad?
I will not be like I'm going with the girl that she would hang me. Like I almost want to do it as like an adventure, just to like fuck it, let's see if we can survive a day in a spa. But like, yeah, to actually do it as like a travel plan, I would die.
I like it. A little bit of alpha, travel alpha coming from Brad. Sammy, how are you doing? I think you're heading out pretty soon as well, not to Singapore, but elsewhere. How's things from your side?
Yeah, I'm gutted to be missing Singapore. Obviously, Breakpoint and Token 2049. But yeah, I'm off to Italy. So different neck of the woods, heading to Sorrento and a few other places. So Amalfi Coast, which would be nice. But yeah, not work related. But I was actually I was in Singapore in January. There's definitely some cool places. Go and grab a Singapore slaying at raffles, which is, I know it's quite touristy, but you go in there, there's like nuts everywhere where people are just throwing them on the floor. So a bit of an experience there. It's
Interesting. All sounds like we're signing off for the summer, guys. You're meant to sell in the summer and go away, and we're just all heading around on our little side missions. Legendary, you will also be in Singapore. How are you feeling about it? Excited?
Yeah, pretty excited. I don't know, the spa thing, I didn't know about that, but that doesn't sound like nightmares. Actually sounds pretty dope. But I can't bring the
I've slept on
roadcast.
beaches before. I would do it.
I can't bring the roadcast to the spa, so but doing pretty well.
Yeah, honestly, the idea, like factoring in how we have the roadcaster and the setup on any trip that we ever go on forever is proving a little bit challenging, to be honest.
But that's Web3 life. We are prepared for that. I remember that one time in 2021, I was at a spa with my girlfriend, and it was the Pixel Vault, the Adidas Mint.
Oh yeah.
And it was 7 p.m. I had brought my laptop to the spa. I got it ready. The girl was aware there's something happening, so I have to be at the laptop and mint that shit. And then suddenly all the electricity went out in the entire spa. And the only thing I could think about is like, hopefully I still have internet. My hotspot is still working. Like I didn't care about the blackout. It was like, could be the apocalypse for what I know. Don't give a fuck. The only thing that matters is need to stay focused and get that mint through. And it did work out.
Good stuff. I mean, I'm surprised they let you not. What kind of spa is this? It doesn't sound very relaxing. It's like, bring all the laptops you need, do all the Web3 DJing activity that you like, plus we're just going to lose electricity at any point in time. So did you go back, Legendary?
It's a wonderful spa, actually. Adults only, everything. Typically, they don't have laptops there, but I just had to do what I had to do in order to secure that mint, which did pump to 2 ETH a piece, so it was worth it.
Break the rules if necessary. Like it. Look, let's get into the headlines and the price action, as always, from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. And then we've got those bigger discussion points for today as well. So starting with the price action, we've got Bitcoin just down 1% in the end at 56.6K, ETH down just over 1% at 2.3K, and Solana down almost 3% at $131. I think if you were to have been monitoring the presidential action, the debate closely, you would have thought that the action would have been way worse based on everyone's reactions. But all things considered, that price action is pretty steady from what I can see. On the headline side, as you said, there's a little bit of a sell-off in crypto, but not a lot realistically. USDC daily transfers on Base hit $7 billion, whilst on-chain summer initiative results in $5 million in mint revenue to creators. We want to dive into that a little bit more. You know that we've been speaking a lot about the L2 battle, as well as the L2 battle against L1. So I think Brad will give us some proper insight here on how successful Base is doing at the moment. And then finally, SEC has made $4.68 billion from crypto firms this year. I want to get into a little bit how the SEC's fines have been increasing over time and how it seems to be a pretty successful business model at the moment to just not provide appropriate regulation and just fine people in increasing amounts as time goes by. So we'll dive into that, plus some notable sales. Xcopy Bad Flavor sold for 280 ETH. Remember, I'm showing this on screen for the people who are watching in. That looks pretty cool. And then Xcopy Bangers and Crash also sold for 18 ETH, and a Beanie CryptoPunk sold for 119 ETH. So these top end NFTs are really moving. We already know the Xcopy market is on fire, but also those kind of grail CryptoPunks as well have really caught some action in the last few days. That's the price action and the headlines, Legendary. Let's head over to our NFT marketplace partner, Mintify, to see what's going on the NFT side.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bored Apes are up 1%, managed to break to the 12 ETH floor, sitting at 12.1 ETH floor. Actually, a nice upwards momentum over the last week, up almost 8%. Pudgies are basically flat, 10.5 ETH floor. Azuki's just down 1%, 4.7 ETH floor. Miladies and Remilios both are having a field day, 3.55 ETH floor for the Miladies, up 3%, up almost 10% over the week. And Remilios up 4%, up 8% over the week, very close to a 0.9 ETH floor. So they managed to reverse the negative momentum that they had quite well. And in terms of one of the collections that we touched on, say a week ago, the CryptoKitties egg, egg is up 32% over the last 24 hours, has reclaimed that 0.16 ETH floor. So it has quite a lot of price action and momentum in there. Again, 30 ETH volume is actually quite a lot. Compare that to maybe the Azuki collection gets 29 ETH volume over the last 24 hours. So that basically same amount of volume flowing into the egg collection. But the thing that I'm always stumbling over is the market cap. It's still 1.2 million market cap, the entire egg collection, that is.
I think that that market cap figure is super helpful that Mintify just put that there in a prominent place, because for any collection that is considering becoming, for any non-fungible collection that is considering becoming a fungible token, it's just a great way for people to realize, like, oh, maybe this is undervalued versus all these other coins that are trading significantly higher but don't have the community, the inbuilt community and strength of maybe the team behind them as some of these NFT communities. So I think that's a really cool metric. Thanks for that. Sammy, anything that's kind of catching your attention at the moment? I know we're going to come on to the prediction market stuff in a little bit, but aside from that, what are you kind of seeing?
Well, given that Mintify have actually launched their ordinals platform, I decided to have a quick look over there. And I think it's quite interesting just looking at things like Bitcoin puppets. Like, I think it looks to me as if they've bottomed a little bit and they're starting to uptick again. So I think they hit the bottom around 0.075 Bitcoin, now up to about almost close to 0.09. And then when you take a look at like Liquidium for lending, there's some quite high loan to value ratios. Like, you're looking at around 80%, some 70%, and some even 90%, which to me suggests that lenders are willing to take on those kind of loans at that kind of level. So potentially risking only like a 10 or 20% downturn from that 0.07 Bitcoin price or floor price. So to me, that suggests that potentially the market sentiment is that maybe ordinals have bottomed and there might be a bit of an uptick. And I think it's the same with the Gods collection on Bitcoin. I think that's up 50% from about a week ago. So there seems to be a bit of market relief on that side of things. And I'd be curious to see if that continues or whether it was just a short bump and then it kind of comes back down again.
I actually really like that shout. I don't know if you were on the show last week where we literally got the calculator out and we're calculating ordinals in dollar value, and we're saying, like, look, this just seems a bit low now. It seems a bit low for the God chain and the kind of premium assets on them. So yeah, I still probably like them. I mean, Node Monks, I think, have were up maybe 10 or so percent in the last 7 days. Bitcoin puppets maybe similar. Quantum Cats, I think, have been historically just more stable. I assume, and this is my big assumption, it's because it will be attached to some token. They've obviously raised a huge amount, and that was very public. And so I guess if you know the raise amount and people can do some calculations, they're more happy to hold at this particular thing because they know they're going to see some liquidity event coming up. Whereas I don't think the other two are anything like that. So that, I think, explains that, if my assumptions are correct. Brad, before we get into some of the other bigger discussions today, what's catching your attention?
Honestly, you touched on the punk sales and some of the bigger NFT stuff.
You're
just
tempted,
threw out
aren't you? You were asking me the other day. You're tempted.
Yeah, and then I mentioned it. It's like, yeah, like it's still an ambition buy for me. And I kind of got some sentiment, like feedback from that. I know everyone's saying NFTs are dead, but I feel like I specifically said ambition buy, so that like it's not like, oh, I won't want to, like whatever, like that, but it's still kind of like that, to see if punks are still the goal, and they are for some people, and that was encouraging to see. So I'm not going to buy one now. I have other things I need to deal with first, but it still is, and I think that's good. Like just general sentiment stuff. I feel like NFTs have to come back at some point, right? And I don't know, maybe feeling bottomy now. But yeah, other than that, it's just nerd talks for me.
I kind of like the shout. I mean, I don't know if it's kind of a specific, maybe a little bit of a personal question, Brad, but like, what do you think? Because I maybe in a similar position, I, as I said to you the other day, I really like punks, and it is a kind of ambition buy. What would be a responsible way to buy a punk? Like, what proportion of your net worth should be in a crypto punk? Is it like less than 10%, 10%, 20%?
I would say
Smaller?
less than 10%. I wouldn't because I feel like more than that, you're hoping that it actually, like, you have to accept the risk that comes with something like that. And for me, it has to be an amount that, like, if it does end up not working out the way I hope, that it's not detrimental to my mental health, whatever, physical well-being, all that shit, right? So for me personally, it would be 10% or less. Yeah.
I think I'd
Otherwise,
probably
you're
go
banking
that.
on it going up, right?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, maybe I'm getting more conservative when it comes to the NFT side. Ideally, it would be like even less than 5%, frankly, like in an ideal world. But I just remember going back. I remember speaking to like a very successful trader this summer, and they were talking about how they were just trying to reduce the percentage of like allocation to NFTs, because the thing that happened with NFTs, of course, as you know, in 2021, things were going up so quickly that it got completely out of control. Like the proportions of your portfolio were completely out of control. Like it just continued to eat up the proportion of your net worth that was in kind of non-fungible digital assets. And even still, they were saying that it was hard to get it down because of how valuable some of them were, and it just seemed irresponsible. And because of how many that they'd collected, it was just hard to get the number down and sell in a responsible way.
That's why they're not appealing to me, frankly. I know we had talked on it previously. We're like, because it's not just like, I mean, you can just floor everything, but if you want to get proper value out of whatever it is that you've collected, you have to sit there and go in a deeper understanding of like, oh, these is a mid rare, and because this thing has a frog hat, it's of course worth 20% more than everything else. And like just refamiliarizing yourself with the actual market typically leads me to just like not moving any of my fucking NFTs. Literally, like I get pinged pretty. I have a whole bunch of forgotten runes from I minted the things. I still have a good amount. I have a bunch of Claynosaurs. People want some. They reach out to me all the time, and I'm just like, I don't have the time to reassess the market to like even begin feeling fair in like negotiations with getting rid of this thing to you. I feel like everyone's trying to scam me, basically, and it's like I don't have time to deal with this. I'll just hold on to it until it's worth infinity, and then like and then I'll deal
Yeah,
with it then.
I like it. I actually did a little bit of an exercise the other day where I was trying to get on top of all the holdings without looking at the numbers in front of me, because I don't have them. But I would say even still, maybe NFTs of the kind of crypto portfolio probably get up to like 10%, 10 to 15 actually percent of my overall portfolio. And it's not without wanting to even decrease that. It's just like I actually got to the point where it's like I will not sell these things that I have. I like them, and I'm very bullish on them. So actually, I'm kind of more comfortable with it. But I would love for that number to be lower, ideally by just making more money separately. That's the only solution, right? Because I'm not selling them, so I just have to make more money somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel
That's the
that. Or
thinking.
like, or they're worth so much that I'm okay flooring everything. That's the kind of mental thing I'm doing. Where it's like, if everything's worth like 20 ETH, whatever, and someone can eat the 1 or 2 ETH on top of each one. I'll just, you know, floor everything and get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've got a couple of other very interesting topics to get into, as well as the headlines as usual. But before we get there, Funky, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts on this conversation when it comes to kind of NFTs and their proportional, the proportional allocation we might have to them?
GM fam, yeah, I'm in the bread camp. I think it should probably be 2% or less, honestly. And just for you specifically, B-Check, as much as you talk about you feel like you're overexposed with ETH and don't have enough Bitcoin exposure, given the choice between a punk or like a whole coin plus in Bitcoin, buy the Bitcoin, not financial advice.
Our resident Bitcoin expert has spoken. Well, we'll have to come to you again for the resident US political correspondent as well in a minute, Funky. But appreciate the Bitcoin take. Let's keep it moving because we want to get into 2 interesting discussions before we hit the headlines today. I like this tweet by Fred Krueger, our favorite Bitcoin bull, though he really, really hates ETH and other cryptos. So not too keen on him in that respect. But he raised an interesting question. And the reason why I brought this up is because obviously people are talking about AI as a big bubble at the moment, huge bubble, or like at least a huge area for potential for people to invest in. And I think I've heard a lot of people kind of speaking about how a lot of money is going to get lost within the AI bubble because everyone knows that it's the thing to try to bet on, or everyone knows that it's the thing where a lot of value will be created. But there are lots of companies that are not going to make it, and so a lot of value will get lost. He asked this question. He said, "What should I invest in? Bitcoin or AI?" He said some insights from the All In conference, which he attended. I believe that was out in the States in the last few days. Number 1, there is exactly one company making money in AI. I think this is really important, like takeaway at the moment. Lots of people are trying to make money in AI or investing in it and throwing loads of money at it. But there's exactly one company making money in AI, that is NVIDIA. The other ones, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, are spending tons of money on AI. Peter Thiel says this gives him 1999 bubbles vibes. Chamath is cautious. So while AI will absolutely change the world in the next decade, the investment plays are, to quote Thiel, not obvious. It's like, yes, we know that it's going to be huge. Where exactly do you allocate for that reason? Unclear. I think that was the main point. He goes on to talk about some bankruptcy stuff, but that's kind of a different point. Legendary, just want to check in with you here. How have you thought about AI stuff? I remember when we were seeing like a lot of these deal flow come over, even when it's like crypto X AI, everyone was trying to fit AI into their kind of marketing materials, even though it wasn't obvious how it was necessarily leveraging AI. What's your thought here?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I feel like NVIDIA definitely is the money-making company. There's no doubt about that. And I feel like the business model is not yet fully figured out. In basically, everyone is in the same Web2 social media phase of just acquiring users. There seems to be an understanding that this technology is so relevant that everyone needs to have access to it. So there needs to be free tiers with those memberships, which basically almost all the LLMs are offering to you. And then it becomes, on the one hand, a race for the subscription service. On the other hand, you need to sell more expensive API accesses to companies or to other B2B partners. However, on the other side of that is the fact that building the GPU clusters, the computing clusters to train LLMs are so ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
I remember that when we talked about Pi, when they were raising $2 billion, I think. They're not raising at a $2 billion valuation. They're raising $2 billion. They're also saying basically that 1.3 or 1.4 bill out of that money is directly going to buy NVIDIA GPUs. It's just the price of that. So yes, it's a bubble. And yes, it has, if you look at like, Porter's 5 forces to analyze that market segment, it has a massive entry barrier. It's so expensive to get into that. So it will be very interesting to see who even can afford to enter that market and challenge that. And we see that this is Apple, this is Amazon, these are all the big companies, obviously Elon Musk as well, Microsoft, Meta, etc., who already are surviving and making money of other businesses. So the thing to me that is the riskiest, the most risky play would be to like invest into AI companies that are trying to come up to build their own LLM or build infrastructure things and are not really backed by those major companies, because they have probably very low odds to survive that. If they don't get the funding, they run out of money just like that in a moment.
Yeah, I was actually very proud of myself when it came. I got super excited. I met this really smart guy in Dubai at the conference there. Really great credentials at building media companies, and was working with like ex Netflix people and former media CEOs, and had basically built this AI tool which was able to immediately translate you as a person. Say we produce this show, we could run it through their AI software and have it have us be speaking in any language at any time. So it's like unbelievable software. I thought it was really cool. And then they are also able to, what's the word? So take the news from the day, it's able to aggregate it, figure out what the key stuff is, and then present it as yourself. I was like, wow, this is genuinely amazing. But for the reasons that you've just described, it's like, I don't know this sector well enough. It was very, very exciting technology, leveraging AI in a really cool way. But in the end, I was like, I'm not confident enough that this would be the right horse to back, because I think a lot of horses are going to be in this race. And I don't know that sector well enough to know which horse to kind of get involved in, I think. Any other reflections from Sam or Brett on the AI question? Sammy, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, well, the first thing, I love the reference to Porter's 5 forces. I haven't heard that in years since business school, but yeah. I think that just to Legendary's point around the infrastructure stuff, like this kind of, to me, leaning into what you know in terms of like crypto, blockchain, I think DePIN is something that could potentially like lean into that. So obviously decentralized physical infrastructure networks, and that to me is something I have more understanding over. And that's probably where I would probably lead my expertise and potentially funds if I was to go into this space. I just don't think, similar to you, I don't know outside of your typical applications like, I don't know, ChatGPT or the various plugins and stuff like that. I wouldn't know specifically what to invest in and even be able to invest in stuff that would then yield a decent return. And I do think there is a bit of a bubble. And I like the comparison he's made to the 1999 bubble, because ultimately, I think 4 years ago or 3 years ago, NFTs, blockchain, crypto was kind of referenced as that bubble. And I think it then took sort of, was it 4 years for Spotify and some of these other tech companies to come through and effectively come out of the ashes? So I think we're at this stage with crypto where it's kind of starting to happen. We're seeing applications come to fruition. I think AI is probably going to be about 2 or 3 years down the line. I think they had the big boom with ChatGPT. And kind of that was the first killer consumer app. I think that it was record breaking in terms of getting a number of users on board, 100 million users or whatever it was. So I think that they will have a boom, but I do think that we're kind of in this lofty AI, I don't know, buzzword phrase still. Like we talk about smart, we talk about like all these buzzwords that people are using to sell at inflated valuations. So I do think that it is slightly overvalued, but I do think it will have its heyday in probably the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I go along with that. Some of the decks we see just getting inserted into any type of conversation, just everything is leveraging AI in some interesting way in order to try to raise money faster, I think, which is definitely something to be aware of. I think as you are analyzing deals and companies, frankly, just like watching out for the language that they're using and kind of questioning whether they're really doing something unique with AI or whether it's just getting chucked in as a way for a marketing purpose. Interesting discussion there. Let's get into the Gemini 2024 Global State of Crypto report. Remember, we've got the some broader thoughts on the market as as it relates to the presidential debate, which took place yesterday. That's coming up. We've also got some other news on the SEC's huge $1 billion crackdowns, how that's operating, as well as a bit more conversation on Ethereum L2s coming up today as part of the headlines. But I thought this was an interesting report produced by Gemini, which is the 2024 Global State of Crypto report. Showing this on screen for the people who are watching in. Remember, we're live on X video, live on YouTube video as well, if you prefer watching there. It was kind of interesting. It basically asked 6,000 adults across US, UK, France, Singapore, and Turkey, just like some trying to get a sense of what's the state of the union, basically. And I'll just present some of the findings because I thought they were relatively interesting. So in terms of crypto ownership by country, everywhere was up. So you can see here, actually only marginally up, to be honest. 20% in the US in 2022 to 21% now, 18% in the UK, no change. Singapore number was actually down, 30% to 26%, and France was 16 to 18%. Interestingly, there was maybe the biggest increase in these kind of bands was in the past owners segment. So it's like, it seems like actually what's happened, according to this data, and appreciate, look, this is only a survey of 6,000 people. We're just analyzing the numbers as we see them, that the numbers of past owners has increased. So whether that's because of the 2021, I don't know, just the challenging market post 2022. In the States, there are now 14% of past owners instead of 5%, 14% instead of 8% past owners in the UK, Singapore 16% instead of 11%. So that kind of bracket has increased. But interestingly, they also suggested that past owners are likely to return. So the crypto industry has a significant opportunity to win back those left the market. More than 70% of past owners in the United States, United Kingdom, France, and Singapore report a potential return to the market. So it's not necessarily the case that according to the survey, again, that these past owners are completely out and not interested in ever getting back in. Who knows the specific reason why they're out, but they are open to it. And then a final interesting point on the ETFs. In the United States, nearly 2 in 5, 37% of cryptocurrency owners surveyed said they hold some crypto through an ETF. More than 1 in 10 own crypto exclusively through an ETF, suggesting they entered the market through ETFs when they were introduced this year. So some interesting numbers here. Would want to go to you, Legendary, to kind of just get your headline thoughts. What do you think about some of these numbers? Do you think they are interesting, meaningful, or meaningless?
I think the past owners is an interesting number to look at because it's people who had a touch point with crypto. They got into the space for reasons whatsoever, probably most likely to speculate and make a potential gain. And if the sentiment is that those people are returning or potentially returning and they're seeing something they find interesting, whether it's prediction markets or something else, that is to me a positive thing. Although with that being said, reminds me of a post that Tyler made yesterday where it was talked about Polymarket being basically this breakthrough app for mass adoption, et cetera, et cetera. And then comparing the user numbers to NBA Top Shot back in the day. And I think Polymarket has 60K users, Top Shot had 400K. So despite the potential of, the past owners coming back to the space, it's still a while away until we can actually break through to crypto mass adoption in a meaningful way. One more number to add to that, not from the Gemini report, but from our own spaces, because this time it is a record number. Actually have 940 people watching the video live, another 120 people in the Twitter spaces. That's not counting the YouTube numbers. So we are at over 1K live listeners today and viewers.
Tag Gemini. Where's that in the report? They've left that out, haven't they? Where's the graph showing the modern market record numbers? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
NVIDIA is winning, by the way, on that.
NVIDIA is...
note. No, video is winning. We have more than 85% of the people consuming the show in video form as opposed to audio only.
Like it. Stick it in the report, Gemini. Get it in. Video is winning. Modern market is up. Brad, you shared an interesting thing here on social sentiment. What did you want to say about this as it relates to the Gemini report?
Yeah, basically nothing, but it did make me think about it because I saw the actual charts. I don't know, like I'm just trying to think of everything's kind of boring right now, and a lot of the podcasts and stuff I'm listening to, everyone's trying to get an idea of like where are we, how's everything feeling, whatever. I think it's just, like everything's just kind of choppy until whatever the actual election comes, right? 'Cause there's a lot of uncertainty, and everyone, I've seen it be described as a coin flip, that like all of our investments go to infinity or to zero, 50% chance, and like because it is it is that, and it's based on who gets elected, because it's that, like no one wants to move. A lot of people are just kind of like watching the market and looking for confirmation before getting back in. And then that thing that I just shared, and for anyone that's not watching, is junglebeat.replit.app. Some guy created. It's just like a confluence of a bunch of different social metrics, like
Kind of like
where
this.
things. Yeah, it's where the app store is, where like the app Becker's engagement rate, Google Trends overlaid with the RSI, like a bunch of like fun, interesting things. And it's just like, I don't know, it's a good way to kind of just look over and see how non-traditional or at least non-monetary metrics are displaying. So I thought I'd share it. Kind of interesting.
Google Trends plot for buying crypto right now is low.
Yeah, it's down. It's down. But like, is that like, has the paradigm changed such that all of our inflow, now that we've unlocked ETFs, like the people that are going to be doing that aren't going to go Google buy crypto, right? They have now financial investors that are doing this stuff for them, right? They're allocating, trillions of dollars to them. And if they throw 1% of our industry, it's not going to be because that guy Googled, what, like buy crypto, right? It's going to be, oh, I know I have a mandate to allocate X%. I have to and like, that's how they're going to do it. So, yeah, I think Googling buy crypto isn't going to be the thing that leads to us going up into the right, even though I know Legendary told me not to say that, but Yeah, it's going to.
We should have a prediction market running for bread saying up and to the right, like it's just a
100%
nailed
hit
on,
rate.
guaranteed hit rate. Yeah,
It's my confidence in this stuff. It's just like, yeah, man, like we're gonna be fine. I don't understand why some people get so freaked out. It's hard for me to articulate how I don't know where your conviction comes from.
Okay, I actually really like this thing. As you said, and the same kind of skepticism applies to the survey itself, right? Look, it comes out in a shiny, nice website packaging, but it's only 6,000 people. It's across a variety of places, so I don't know if you can take any of this stuff with and draw too certain a conclusion. Just on your point though about things being like kind of quiet and choppy, Sam, maybe it'd be interesting for your thoughts here. I heard some people talking the other day, and I really think, when we're talking about social indicators as well, follower accounts and like interaction and engagement, I feel like it's particularly slow at the moment. And it feels like we're just not getting any influx of new people. I wouldn't go so far as to say retail is not here, because maybe in opposition to what a lot of people think, I think we are retail. I think a lot of us are retail. And although we wouldn't like to be, I think a lot of us are. But my specific point is that there's not a lot of new retail around. Like there's not a lot of new influx of velocity of people entering the space with their capital entering the space. There's not a lot of people new entering our spaces. And but if they are entering, they're kind of existing people already. Sam, are you noticing that as well from the social perspective? And do you think that, it's basically the same groups of people just going around in circles?
Well, I think maybe we're sophisticated retail, hopefully.
Oh, okay. Yes,
but
that's
yeah.
that's the way we put it.
But no, I've definitely noticed that. I think in terms of follower count, I think that kind of goes through waves. Like if you're a bigger account, you tend to get capped at a certain level. Like you look at your whale swoosh or your stats, like they tipped over 100K. They've grown a little bit, but it kind of slows down to an extent. I think that there's a period in time as well where like selling may go away. You'll have people go out for the summer and come back. So you'll have waves like that. It's very, very seasonal as well. And I think there's a lot of people from 2021 that had dead follower accounts. So you have people that kind of go away because they're just considered tourists or whatever. They'll come into the space. And I think that could potentially happen. Like we had a bit of a run back in March time, and that's kind of faded a little bit. So I think there is definitely slow months. And I have noticed that people do cap out. And it becomes harder to gain those followers that you used to be able to. Like I remember the days where you write a thread and you get probably 500 to 1,000 followers each time. You do that daily. And then all of a sudden you probably get 10 followers now. It's like,
look at this dude acting like it's easy. Like, oh, you just do this thing, you get 500 followers, no big fucking deal.
Not me,
Dude.
not me. Well,
yeah.
Back in the bull market. That's
how many followers you get from that Vista thread, by the way? 10 days ago?
I think it's about 800.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah, not you.
No,
Yeah.
but that doesn't happen all the time, though, does it? It's like it caps out. So like you write.
Just own it, Sam. You're being too British. Yeah, it is you. That's
I'm not gonna get rid of my heritage for. Got to stay modest. But no, I think it's definitely seasonal. But just another point on that, the Gemini stuff as well. Like I'm quite interested in those non-holders, and something that you guys might notice when you're in Singapore, when you speak to the average person on the street, they might not hold crypto, but they're quite informed about it. Like you can actually have a reasonable conversation about sort of key topics within crypto with just the average person on the street. Whereas in London, you just can't, like a lot of the time, like they don't even know what an NFT is. And I think that is interesting to me as well. Because if you've got like a collection of people that are non-holders, but they're informed, they've made an informed decision not to buy crypto. But then there's people that maybe haven't discovered what crypto is, how it works, that could potentially transfer to that kind of holder base eventually. So that to me is quite interesting as well. So just getting a bit more of an understanding. And I've not read the Gemini report in detail, so it might cover that, but that's just something I'd note.
Yeah. I've kind of heard that sentiment as well. I'm interested to find out as we go over. Not that I'm going to be stopping like the average person in Singapore to like double check whether Sammy's thesis is correct.
Well, do that. I mean, the Daily Show do it, so you guys can do that with like your portable mics that you get when you go to Singapore and just ask the average person on the street and film it.
Maybe we'll look into it. Maybe a final question on this before we get into some of the headlines for today, since we've got stats up on stage, would love to hear your thoughts, Sam, on this kind of reading of social sentiment, where you think we are in the market, and how the kind of reading of the social sentiment might play into it. Welcome to the stage, my friend. What are you thinking here?
What's up, guys? How you doing? Just in terms of like, you mean just the overall market sentiment?
Yeah, and how you might think about reading the social sentiment and the social metrics as part of you kind of drawing your own conclusions.
Which specific social sentiment are you talking about?
Might be follower account, might be engagement on your content, things of that nature.
Oh, I see. That's hard for me to say because I just haven't been that active on X. I have like a very NFT native following, and anytime I post a big sale, like my following comes out the way they always do. So I'd say that I am kind of amazed at how much engagement I'm getting over posts that I think are actually kind of shit. But what I also would say is with fantasy, it's very hard to understand like what's real and what's not. Even my like I don't follow fantasy, so I don't know when the tournaments are happening. But like, yeah, stuff that I don't think will get much engagement is getting like 150 likes, whereas for me, like a shit post would get 30. So it's that part is hard. But I am kind of like, I am always amazed when like I mean, my audience is so NFT native that there are still a lot of NFT native people out there who really miss the NFT days, but that doesn't mean that the asset class is going to do well. I mean, I think broadly speaking, I think the three narratives that I think we've had this year, one is ETF flows, and I think that's still a very relevant narrative, but it's certainly not exciting right now. Second one is Donald Trump winning, and I think that one has lost steam, even though he's still up in Polymarket. It just doesn't feel like, even when he was like rising in Polymarket, Bitcoin wasn't rallying,
Yeah.
So like we just had like a 2 to 3 week stretch where he went from 45% on Polymarket to 56 or 53, 54, like a decent rally where polls moved in his favor and you didn't see crypto rallying. So it just feels like the market isn't either A, isn't as like confident he's going to win, or B, like isn't as convinced that that's just going to send crypto. But that, I guess that contrasts with yesterday where Bitcoin went down when he performed worse in the debate. But that narrative doesn't feel like it has as much steam. And then the third thing for me is like, I don't know what the kind of like apps that people are excited about are. Like over the past 3 years, I feel like NFTs have had their moment, DeFi has had a ton of moments, restaking has had a moment, Blast, Ordinals, Base. There have been all these different narratives going on that got people excited and where people were occupied, and I don't really know what that is right now. So I think it's been a little, other than like meme coins, which are losing their energy as well. So I don't know. It does feel like a slow time in the market, and that the market's trying to figure out what the next narrative could be to get people excited again.
Making it easier on you, Sam. Fantasy stuff is all like routine now, so it's every Monday through Thursday. That's the term.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, so that would explain why I'll post like one CryptoPunk sale and it gets 150 likes or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
Love it. Appreciate the insight. I know exactly what you mean when it feels like a bit of steam has been lost on a variety of the trains, like in different ways. Everything's lost steam. It feels like some of the good tokens that came to market, say even EtherFi, for example, as we've noticed, like the first drop is always the best drop. The second and third and fourth and every subsequent one is like a slightly lower drop in terms of the incentives that they're able to give out. Still means they're building a good product. I don't know if you saw, they built this really interesting credit card product where they can where you can like borrow against your restaked ETH in order to spend and then use the yield to pay off the debt. So it's like, I think there is some interesting financial innovation in that respect, but again, that's like a fairly fintechy kind of solution to a problem, and I don't know if that's like the consumer adoption that people are really super excited about. Let's keep it moving. I think we've spoken about the market and where we feel we are as a consequence quite a bit. maybe a quick thing on the election, the presidential debate yesterday. If you were reading the tweets around the time, or when I was experienced it, waking up, reading the tweets about it, you would have thought that maybe something cataclysmic was going to happen to prices, because I think in people's minds it's very, very correlated to Trump, and that's kind of what Sam was speaking to. But in reality, yes, it appears to be the case that Trump performed less well than expected. It appeared to be the case that Kamala performed better than expected. But, you know, Bitcoin's down 1%, ETH is down 1%, Solana's down a couple of percent. So no real carnage in the markets as a consequence of that. Sam, I wanted to throw to you, because I know you were like doing some stuff in the prediction markets here, and maybe you were making some kind of interesting moves that would be interesting to share.
Yeah, I mean, the debate was quite early in the morning. So for me personally, I mean, I was looking at the bid walls on Predict, so on Blast. I think that previous to that debate, so Trump had quite a significant amount of bidding. I think it was like 51.8 cents or something like that. It's now down to 50.7. But ultimately, the long and short of it is, like, it didn't really look like it came across too well. I think the market moved against Trump and in Kamala Harris' favor. And actually, if you look at the bid walls now on what they're doing for Harris, it's actually gone up quite significantly. And there's now quite a lot of sell ask positions for Trump, because obviously people got hit as the market shifted, and now they're just like, they're placing their sell or their betting slips at the sell position for that. So it's just quite interesting to watch that market movement on Predict, because it's slightly different to how it operates on Polymarket, in the sense that there's a lot more fluidity between those bids getting hit on Polymarket, whereas there's significant bidding incentives, where obviously the Blast Gold put in on Predict to kind of counter that. So it's just slightly different market dynamics. It's just interesting just watching that movement. But yeah, I mean, I've watched some of the highlights, and yeah, I don't know, like I agree with Sam that there is that kind of shift in sentiment a little bit on the timeline. I mean, I saw Cyrus's tweet saying this guy's screwed me for more money than I can't remember what the reference point was, but yeah, they kind of interrogated him a little bit, and some of his answers, like people eating dogs and cats in Springfield, was a little bit absurd. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel a little bit less confident holding.
Did you see the video of that? There was a video of it.
Yeah.
It actually happened.
Oh, actually happening.
Yeah, it was like it was a
they
video
did some fact checking.
This is my citizen journalism coming forward. So there was a link in one of the threads. I don't know, but it was a cop literally pulled up, and he had his body cam, and there's just some lady sitting there hunched over, like on top of a dead cat, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And then all the people that are standing there next to her is like, "She was just eating the thing." She's like, and they're like taking a picture of her mouth and like all this stuff. So yeah, she was just sitting there mowing on a cat apparently. And they're like, "All right, get the vet out here. The thing's dead." So,
but is this like a one-off thing that just happened to be caught on camera, and then it's been
maybe
kind of pushed
it could
out?
probably be from like 2007, and like it doesn't fucking matter, right? So like they're making it relevant. I don't know, but that seemed to at least corroborate somewhat.
This stuff's just gonna get so absurd, isn't it? Like when you think it can't get more absurd, it just does. And I was just telling Sam before the show, when it comes to these kind of events, when I know two people are going to embarrass themselves, I maybe this is embarrassing for me, to be honest, but I can't watch other people embarrass themselves, knowing like when they're about to produce content that's just like so embarrassing. I get so embarrassed for them, and like all of this stuff just gets me, is so cringe that I can't actually watch it. So I'm relying on your analysis on the specific events, because I can't watch the clips. I just can't bring myself to do it. Legendary, maybe a final take on this before we keep it moving, because you know I don't think it's affected that market that much, the market that much. So is there anything on the prediction market side that you saw, because I know you've been playing around on Polymarket as well? A final take here.
Just many more bets coming up on Polymarket, really leveraging that political momentum. In terms of the actual debate, I think everyone tries to present it as a win for their own side, so nothing of substance to add there. Maybe more on a personal note, one sentence, like I know how these debates work and everything, but if you break them down to the actual content level from both sides, you don't really learn a lot if you're watching them, and that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
Did you? Or is that just a general comment about
Uh,
debates?
It's a general comment about debates. I didn't watch all of yesterday's debate. I will rewatch it, but it was more of a general comment. I'd be surprised if that one was an exception, though, to the rule. Was it, in your opinion?
I mean, it was to me, it was more of what we've just. Anybody who watches the rallies and stuff, I thought it was quite similar to what we've seen there. I would say though that like talking about eating dogs, even if there's one YouTube video of someone eating a dog at one point in history, like it's not what Americans care about. It's not, and it's silly, and it's in this case, it's saying it's pinpointing that on a specific immigrant group, which I think is just not the type of thing that is what people want. And you can argue all day. No one said, I hope Donald Trump talks about eating dogs today. There isn't a single person that thought that was a good idea, and he did it within 20 minutes. Like, I don't think one YouTube video minimizes that, and the fact that, I think he got baited a fair bit in a way that no one really wanted to see happen.
Yeah, I saw that kind of general thought process as well, that he got baited. He kind of took the bait on a variety of things. And as you say, it kind of trivializes some quite serious things that I guess the US are trying to work through. The fact that, we're trying to not get too political on the show, and yet like the one kind of key detail that kind of rises to the top is one of the most absurd comments. So completely take
the first 20 minutes of the debate. But
yeah.
I mean, the other thing I'll say is I'm starting to feel, and I could be like, Bitcoin and crypto weren't mentioned once at the entire Republican National Convention. It also wasn't mentioned at the Democrat National Convention. Trump went to the Bitcoin conference, but it does feel like crypto seems to care a little bit less about this election than it did a month ago, at least in terms of this is exclusively on price movement, not in terms of sentiment on the timeline. But prices just don't seem as tied up. Like you said, it would. I think that debate, no matter who's really talking, there are two sides. Like one side that I've seen is that Kamala like destroyed him, and the other side I've seen is that the moderators were biased. But either way, this was not a win for Trump. And and the complex is down like 1%. Like it's just starting to feel like the marketplace is not tying this election to prices as much as it did kind of in the post-Bitcoin conference kind of aftermath.
Yeah, and I think I think the market is completely backing that up, right? I think at one point in time, maybe in the run up to the Bitcoin conference, it was like more highly correlated. But as you say, Trump's run up in the poly market odds was quite significant the other day, and the market didn't really care about that. So I think it's very
90 minutes of the two of them yelling at each other for 90 minutes, and the word crypto wasn't said once. Like it's just not, so I don't know. It just feels like it's less of a thing that the market's tying to. I mean, it's not nothing, but it feels much smaller.
Yeah, I think that's fair. One of the more rogue thoughts that I thought, it's not a rogue thought as such, but like, I was kind of struggling to see, like, I appreciate from a regulatory perspective that people always say that, the Democrats have been terribly bad for crypto. And I think broadly it has stifled like the building in the States. But as it relates just to price, like, when we went in the 2021 bull market, like no one really cared that there was no regulation. Like the price action happened because of maybe monetary policy. And in a way, I mean, I don't know if this is the right lens to view it through, but okay, Trump is pro Bitcoin, that would be good. But he also seems to be pro like getting on top of the fiscal stuff, or at least there's some noises about that, which I don't know if anyone would actually ever follow through on. But if some of the policies that Kamala is suggesting might come through, people are saying like that would be maybe fiscally irresponsible, and that there's more kind of stuff to give away. And then potentially, is that not like the thesis for Bitcoin in a kind of perverse way? They may be anti-crypto, but the more irresponsible, and maybe this is the broad point, the more irresponsible government is, the thesis for Bitcoin is that it's supposed to go up almost as governments become more irresponsible. Sam, I don't know if you have a kind of thought on that.
I mean, the Donald Trump administration was expanded the budget as much as any presidential in in history, really. So I don't think that's like a huge point of differentiation. Combined with lowering taxes, was very big government and budget unfriendly. So I don't fully see that differentiation. But yeah, I mean, we have not seen the case where government kind of dysfunction leads to Bitcoin doing well. Like Bitcoin has historically been correlated with money supply, risk assets. But I think there is this kind of narrative in the back of people's heads that as things get more chaotic and more crazy in the world, Bitcoin is a nice safe asset. And, it's one of the reasons I own Bitcoin and why I own crypto is because I just think it's kind of a chaos hedge. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure either of these situations with the candidates that people are talking about are non-chaotic. I mean, Donald Trump is extremely chaotic himself and has kind of talked about revenge against political enemies or prosecuting political enemies, which doesn't strike me as the type of thing that's stabilizing either. But I think there is a case here where more chaos in either direction could be something we haven't seen it play out before in a serious way, but I think there is always that kind of narrative that could play out. It's still a very young asset with a lot of time for us to see what works.
Yeah, I think that's what I've been writing about a reasonable amount. Like the idea that in both scenarios, there's actually a reasonable likelihood of, like where you put that, like some kind of chaotic outcome. Look, we're kind of drawing towards the close of the show today. We've kind of gone a little bit longer on this point. Funky, your hand's been raised. I want to give you a chance to maybe tie a bow on this topic for us. What are your thoughts from your perspective? And then we'll close out shortly.
Thanks, B. Yeah, I was just going to chime in basically what Sam just said. I don't think it really matters who wins at the end of the day. They're both going to spend money. The rates are going to get cut. Things are going to pump. I really don't think it really matters. I mean, it would be better to have a more friendly president to get that regulatory clarity. And one last thing of note that I thought was really interesting as part of my side hustle, I'm actually going to be in a meeting today that the CFTC I'm not the CFTC, the House Financial Services Committee is looking at an NFT bill. So I have to provide feedback later on today in a meeting for the working group for the Blockchain Association, but I'll circle back because they have to mark up that bill by the end of the month. So NFTs are on the agenda in the House. So I just wanted to at least share that too.
An NFT reserve treasury, Funky. I think that's one of the things that needs to be put in, right? Like a buying loop of US dollars flowing into the top NFT assets. Is that on the table?
No, not at all.
Okay. Just a suggestion. I mean, the meeting's later, so if you feel free to include that. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. That's a great show today. Hope you enjoyed it. We're hitting record numbers here. 1,600 watching in across video platforms, a ton in the spaces too. As always, just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube. If you prefer watching in, do head over to YouTube. You can like the video. You can subscribe as well. Produce some other content over there too. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, thanks to Legendary, Sammy, Bread up on stage, our contributors, Sam, Stats, and Funky. And shout out to the YouTube commenters as well. This is one of the funnest things about building this out. Loads of cool people routinely keeping the community going on YouTube. Shout out to Justifano, Overarch, Husker, Sunny, Crypto Mocus, and Corona and Alan. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll be back again tomorrow. We will see you on the other side. Bye-bye.